evening and welcome to another informative episode of Health Check. It's only on Hope TV, it's a station where you look and live. My name is Kerry Kagiri and quite an interesting day. First, I'd love to apologize for starting a little late, but we're here now, so let's celebrate what God is doing. We're also expecting one of our guests who will be coming in shortly. But I want to give you a highlight of today. I got to spend time with people between the age of 13 and 16, and the conversation we were having was exactly what we are about to do. As I noticed, the young people pretty much just knew, you know what, addictions are bad. They're uncomfortable. They didn't really have the complete answers. Today, we're going to be equipping you with all that and much more on Health Check as we talk about nicotine dependence. What do you need to do? You need to share this video on your Facebook. If you're watching us online, just click that share button. If you're on YouTube, share. If you need to call someone and tell them Health Check is discussing nicotine dependence, go ahead and do that. With me on set right now is David Odaba. Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you for coming through.
Pleasure.
Probably you could introduce yourself. Did I say your name correct?
Yes.
Okay, so thank you so much for coming through. Can guys follow you on any platforms or engage with you in any way?
Yes. I'm an addiction professional based at Dove Mental Health Hospital here in Kikuyu. Yes.
Awesome. Dove.
Yes.
That's amazing.
Exactly.
How did you get into that space? Maybe just a snippet. I know we're getting deeper into the story.
Yes. I'm a recovering addict. Used cigarettes for very many years.
Wow.
Yes. Alongside alcohol, other stuff. I used to be a polydrug. Exactly.
Wow.
Yes.
Thank you.
That's how I ended at Dove Mental Health Hospital here for reasons better to keep my sobriety. Yes.
So one way of keeping your sobriety, you say, is by sharing the same with others.
Yes.
I love
exactly.
that. Awesome.
That is
We'll be getting
being,
deeper into your story, and we're so grateful for your company tonight. And also with that is Michael Ondachi, an addiction counselor. Thank you for joining us.
You're most welcome.
Probably you could also break down to us how you got into addiction counseling.
Whoa, interesting story. I'm also in recovery. I used to take basically everything.
Wow.
From marijuana, cigarettes, alcohol, all sorts of alcohol, hard liquor, beers, everything. And cigarettes also. And those things were driving me crazy, like totally. So when I got to a place where I realized that it was a problem, I had to wake up and decide, because it's a choice that you make. One thing about addiction that people don't understand is its sickness. It's actually a form of mental illness. So the day I realized it's not really a discipline problem or a moral issue, I decided I can make the difference. Yes.
I love that. So addiction is indeed a sickness and it needs to be treated. And that's why our guests are in various spaces where they help and offer support to you and your children. If you could tell them to start watching, this would be a good time as we break down the anatomy of nicotine addiction. I'll start with you, Michael. Mm-hmm. What is this nicotine addiction in specific?
Nicotine addiction is basically a chemical dependency issue. All sorts of substance, be it marijuana, be it alcohol. Alcohol is more of an ethanol issue. Marijuana is THC. So tobacco, the addictive substance is nicotine. So when you take these things, they go into your brain and mess the chemical way of operating things that is normal. So in the brain, we have what you call neurotransmitters. And there's one major active one. It's called dopamine.
Yes.
And people who usually smoke weed, they go like dope.
Just dope.
So,
that's where that came from.
Yeah,
oh
it's a feel-good hormone.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
I never got that, yeah.
So these active substances, THC, ethanol. Now, today we're talking about nicotine. Nicotine is very addictive. An addiction is defined by you not being able to cope without. You will not function unless this thing is in your system. And in addiction, not everybody is predisposed to getting hooked.
Yes.
It's,
So it's genetic in a
it's
sense.
genetic. We call it a genetic predisposition.
Yes.
And other factors but mostly it is really genetically implicated.
Michael, actually, David, let's talk
Yes.
to you just a little bit. What are some of the dependencies and things that you cannot be able to do during addiction? How do you notice that this is a problem now?
Exactly. Addiction, just as my comrade Michael had said, these neurotransmitters, their work exactly is to convey the information from the body tissues to and from the body tissues. Now, when a substance like nicotine, which is very addictive, gets into the system, it triggers the brain areas where there is pleasure, where there is that dopamine, and the substance is overflooded, then definitely it is derived that somebody will not operate optimal like usually expected, because there is a normal, the natural, you are created with your natural being, there's enough transmission, that's why we get the homeostasis or body balance. Yeah, exactly. When you operate in the normal and there's something that comes in, everything function is skewed. Even the judgment becomes impaired, the reasoning is not congruent, the negative thinking is consistent in the brains. Yeah, definitely these things trigger or bring about some emotions that are changed all of a sudden. Not to them. That's where you will see this queer behavior or whatever. Somebody is like dependent on the substance.
Absolutely.
The brain is usually, particularly because it's mimicked by these drugs that come in. They steal themselves into the system.
Wow.
And they behave like the normal substances that somebody was created with. Yeah, when
they're
they're
not.
not. Yeah.
Let's talk about practical ones. There's a mom who's watching and probably has no idea that
Yes.
this is an addiction, or someone who's watching who actually, smokes and takes nicotine in whatever form, and they don't know they're addicted. What are some of the functions that it for you? Let's use your example.
Example, financially, let me start from the
Let's start there.
financial
That's a
aspect.
good one.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Every single amount of money you get into the pocket, you plan that next half of this money is a packet of cigarettes. Half of this money is, like for my sake, I come from the border, and where we get exported tobacco super much at a very good price. So I'll keep a whole pack, even a dozen of packets. Yeah. And when I'm broke, I'll go for maybe the pieces that I used to put off stomping.
Oh, no.
I'll go for those pieces.
So
in,
umeshika
yeah,
hata aje?
yeah,
Do you have to
with
put
the
some
nails,
nails
yeah.
to hold it?
Yeah.
That's serious.
We derive even techniques to use grass or whatever. If the substance is gone down completely, we roll the remnants into a newspaper. So we are taking the carbon in the newspaper, the nicotine, the carbon from the same cigarette. Yes,
Oh my.
that is addiction. Yeah.
Okay. With you, Michael, I'm just thinking, so at what point is one considered? Like someone walks into your office and your space what are the things you break down to them? And I think we've highlighted it, but I want someone to be able to not self-diagnose, but see that there's a problem.
Right. When we talk about dependency, it means you cannot function normally without. We're talking of cravings.
Okay.
We're talking of withdrawals, like if you've not smoked in a day. Dependency starts with tolerance. You don't start by smoking a full cigarette by yourself, Initially, it's friends who are going to introduce you to this stuff. So you take a first puff, second puff, you choke, you start coughing, you start reacting funny. So if you are predisposed to this thing, because there are those who attempt and then they'll be like, this one is not mine.
Ndio kina sisi,
But
ilikataa.
there's another guy who'll be like, hey, wait, I had this reaction, but it was not all that bad. I can give it another try. So it already checked in the system and the system likes it. So we talk about we talk about wanting to do it again and again and again and again. It has you start craving, you start getting headaches, you start getting irritable, you start getting easily angry if you've not taken this stuff. During the day, as we talk of tolerance, the first time you didn't like it, the next day you finish a whole cigarette by yourself, and slowly you increase the number, maybe from 1 to 10 in a day. And usually, most addicts who are on nicotine will take about 10 cigarettes, in a day, and then a pack, and then 2 packs, and then you can't really do without this stuff. So when you come to us, it's someone who's on cigarettes. It's very easy to notice because there's always that distant smell if their hygiene is good. But there are those when you're mejiachilia, you can just pick it from far. The tone of your skin, the darkening of the lips, around the eyes. You can always tell someone who is struggling with this.
Okay.
And nicotine is quite addictive. An addiction is defined by the number of times you want to do it. They say like...
So the frequency.
The frequency. Because something like cocaine is addictive, marijuana is addictive, but you may not take as much marijuana or cocaine as cigarettes, meaning that the affinity is higher, that you want it more and more and more. That's why you can't really take, as many rolls of weed as cigarettes because of the potency, first of all, of the drug. But nicotine will keep on, your system will keep on demanding for it.
Wow. When was the first time you had a cigarette, David? Do you remember the first puff?
Really amazing. I started smoking cigarettes in Standard 6.
Okay, that's 11, 12 years.
Not 11, 12 years. Standard 6 is around 1981.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. I'm over 50 currently. Yeah.
Sorry, we can't tell.
Yes. I started smoking cigarettes in maybe some place like a veranda. And I would start smoking by my 2 brothers.
Wow.
Yes. I lost all of them to addiction. Very big man, a company. Yeah. One of them was working with the port, said he already had money. When he buys a packet, he buys me an extra packet.
Wow.
So they started training me on taking the cigarettes.
So was it a social habit? Like, what was the plan?
The plan was maybe it is stylish. Like, we belong to so-and-so, to Odaba family, so we are smokers. The elder smokes. So what about the young man? Yeah. It looks like Charlie or so, this great artist. So imitation is, yeah. And the movies of then, those years, yeah. Somebody will tell you I'm Stevie Wonder. And this here. So that was the life.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wow. And from then, life continued and you continued. When did you know? When was that day, the light bulb for I'm an addict?
It's taken so long with nicotine.
Yes.
It's not easy to tell.
Wow.
it's taken so long because by then we used to live around Kisumu, some place, and the next place was a slum, Kaloreni. If you come from that estate and you don't smoke, who are you? Who are you?
So it's a culture.
Yes, exactly. The peer pressure, the friends, so and so smokes. He's a good hockey player. He's a good basketballer. So why don't you smoke? And you say you also do games. Which games? Yeah. So the trend continued
Wow.
that way. And something very funny with the smoke, just like Mr. Michael had said, it triggers the pleasure giving zones of the brain. So the brain is accustomed to it. Whether you stop now, there's a time again, your memory is there. It stores all the information. You'll start again using the same substance. So when I went into secondary, I wasn't smoking at all. In Form 1, Form 2, Form 3, now this thing came back at around Form 4 again.
Wow.
Same cigarette, yes. Every drink goes with a cigarette. Every meal, the cigarette must be there.
Is it an appetizer?
I've become dependent totally, yes. And then there's this tolerance. When the effect goes off, you want another cigarette to trigger the same effect. Generally, drugs, when you start using, they create a natural phenomena, occurrence of cravings. That is the X factor we have, we who are addicts. So everybody should be very careful.
Absolutely. And that's one thing we've been talking about. Just don't start. Don't try it. Don't attempt fate. Don't do it. That's the main thing, you know. And wow, this is quite interesting. As I was doing my research, I realized that, you know, after a while, the mind gets used to the nicotine, and then now it's the smell, the, what do you call it, like the yomoshi. It has its own chemical that starts triggering the addiction and the desire. What's that about?
Triggers many things. The number one trigger is usually people. We talk of PPTs, people, places, and things.
Oh, yes.
So the moment you are in an addiction, you tend to associate some things with your addiction. For example, now you're talking about the cigarette smoke. It's your brain has become dependent on this substance, that just the smell enough. You know, one of the strongest memories that we have is that of smell.
That's true.
You know, it takes you to places.
Some guy can just pass, I remember heartbreak. I'm just like, someone I used to love smells like that.
Yeah, you know,
It's real.
it's so the smells are very, you know, significant to us as human beings. So the moment you pick that scent, it takes you back to that place. People, number one person is you, yourself, the addict. You know, then the people that you hang out around with. For example, if I was hanging out with David, you know, I used to smoke with him. Just his presence is
Reminds
enough. Yeah. And maybe he happens to have something in his pocket. I'll know, like, hey, what's up? I don't even need to tell him about it.
It's natural.
It's natural,
Wow.
you know. And the places that you go to, maybe you used to smoke under a certain tree, you know, the clubs,
veranda.
the veranda, exactly. It triggers those memories, and it's a feel good. We're talking about dope, right? Dopamine, which makes you feel good. So the other thing is things. You know, we talk of paraphernalia. Maybe you have this jacket that you believe it gives you good luck. You're going to meet your friends, you're going to have a good time. So you have it, or maybe it has some interesting artist. I won't mention names
Don't
for now.
mention.
But when you see that, it triggers. You know, these are triggers. So in cognitive behavioral theory, CBT, we train people on how to be conscious, restructuring of your thought processing, restructuring of your thought content, because all this thing is in the mind.
Absolutely. And for the kids, what we're talking about today, this is so interesting that this happened today as well. we're talking about the gates. Our eyes are gates. What we watch, what we look at. Our ears are gates. What do we hear? If you keep hearing, this is dope, this is whatever, smoke up, you drink up, whatever, all that music you keep hearing, it's being stored somewhere. If you taste or you take something or you speak something, it's the same thing. So I just keep hearing that pamoja. But let's talk about the effect on our mental health. Can you highlight some of the things? I'll start with you, David. What are some of the things that affected you in your mind?
Yeah, the substance, like we said, skews or bends normal functions of a human being, and substance is definitely playing for you the cards in this process. You find that you can't do anything, any light work, any job without the cigarette. If you wake up, maybe you have to take like we say, the tobacco has got the effect playing part mostly because of the nicotine. So you can't take a meal, take even a glass of water before you smoke. You can't even see the pages of your books in the normal way, like before you smoke, before you puff. And I think it's very sad, very painful that maybe due to our ages, maybe in your early years, it was cheap stuff. But today, the children of today, I'm very pitiful to them because these things are laced.
Yes.
Yeah, you think you're smoking the cigarette.
But
it's a gateway to
that's true.
heroin.
Absolutely.
Yes.
I love that you've highlighted that. This is a good moment for saying that. As we continue, I'd love to introduce our resident psychiatrist, Dr. Catherine Gitao. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Better late than ugly. You look so beautiful. So it's okay. Karibu.
Thank you so
and
much.
And we are just getting into this part of the effects of nicotine addiction to our mental health. And I'll ask you to comment on that. But I also want to invite Michael and allow you to continue. If you just joined us, we are talking about nicotine dependence. And we have with us specialists in studio. We have David Odaba, who's joined us from Dove, but also is recovering from cigarette smoking, and he's being so open, including sharing with us the very first time he did it and how that the ripple effect. And we continue with the story. Of course, with us also is Michael Ondachi, who's an addiction counselor. Thank you so much for making time. And Dr. Catherine Gitao, psychiatrist. Thank you so much. So, Michael, you can highlight something. And David, I hope I didn't cut you short.
Yes.
Okay, good. So, Michael, you can highlight on this effect of on our mental health.
Right. Addiction impacts as a person as a whole. We are talking about your physical, psychological, spiritual, financial. That's why in treatment we talk about holistic kind of approach. Addiction is not just physiological, whereby your brain gets dependent on this substance. Psychological, like what you are associating your usage with. For example, sitting on the balcony, you're going to stand on that balcony and you don't have the cigarettes and you're trying to get off it. What happens? You get triggered. You start meeting the people you used to use with and you're not choosing. What happens? You get triggered, not necessarily because they have it on them, but because of what you have associated your previous experiences of usage with. So the dependency is so real. In treatment, what you usually start with is treating the physiological part of it, like we are getting you off this substance. So what is going to compensate for that, And there are things that we use, like the nicotine patch, like the lozenges, like Nicorette gum.
I have a friend who, my cycle buddy, always has to have gum. But this is like 10 years after.
Yeah.
Wow.
10 years after.
Yeah. That's strange.
Wow. That's That's not healthy.
That's addiction now
That's
to
addiction.
the gum.
Yeah, it is. Because you're talking of replacement therapy. So it's supposed to be short term,
Okay.
not long term. What we treat in short term is physiological. What we
Okay.
treat long term is psychological. So we are supposed to have you psychologically, spiritually, emotionally independent, that we get you off this chemical dependency.
Wow. So that's the point. Daktari, as you join us, Dr. Catherine Gitao, and please keep sending in your questions, 20933. In a short while, we'll be going on a break and we'll come back to start responding to your questions. You can also call live in studio. The number is right below the screen, right here. Daktari, let's talk about the mental health impact of nicotine addiction.
Yeah. Okay. Please, if you could allow me, Kerry, let me just pick a bit on what he mentioned.
Please go ahead.
Please. Or rather, it's you who actually said it about your friend being dependent on the gums.
Yes.
Yeah. So that is quite common actually when somebody now switches from being dependent on the cigarette to being dependent on the gums. But there's also a treatment for that in terms of replacing how many gums are they using in a day and replacing that with patches, and then slowly weaning somebody off those patches so that they don't get the withdrawals, as you said, the physiological symptoms that you get when you're withdrawing from the nicotine. So that replacement can help your friend get off the gums, yeah, because also gums damage your oral hygiene and all that,
Yes.
yeah. Okay, now getting back to your question, you're asking how nicotine addiction affects our mental health. First of all, those who tend to use nicotine or cigarettes, to be specific, usually have, most of the time, have an underlying anxiety disorder. That is the most common. And of course now the dependence on nicotine now develops, because when you use the cigarettes, it tends to calm your nerves down. Yeah. So that in itself, it's been used like a treatment for the anxiety. But then now when you try to get off it, then you now again get like a rebound, like the anxiety symptoms come back. So in that way, it is affecting your mental health in that it is making you now develop these dependency symptoms. I don't know if you had talked about them earlier, where now you're not being able to get rid of this substance. You keep craving it. You now have to use larger amounts of it. And of course, now when you're using larger amounts, it is affecting how you're working, how you're relating with other people. Because if you're going to use it more frequently, that means it's interrupting with your work, with how your social relations, in that now maybe your spouse is not happy that you have to keep smoking. You find maybe you're smoking in the bedroom. That again is affecting your social relationship. So it affects you in terms of now it is affecting all areas of your life.
You know, if I highlighted that, I remember when I used to be an Uber driver, I share this all the time.
Yeah.
I used to drive Ubers. I did 700 trips. And the biggest fight I had with passengers was, can I smoke? And I'm like, not in my car. But that time you want a good rating. So you're like, just lower the window. You don't know what to do. Because you're literally, you're like, I've saved demon chest is spirit filled. In the mighty name of Jesus, I rebuke that. But they're like, can I smoke? I'm like, it was so
and
hard.
you'll find that if somebody is not going to smoke at that point, they get irritable.
Completely.
Now start
exactly.
getting...
Let's all have peace.
Yes. So it affects your mental health in many ways, as you mentioned, that it's like affecting a lot around you.
Man.
And in turn affecting your mental health. And then nicotine has an effect in terms of, as I mentioned, it's like it reduces anxiety, also to some degree depression. So it's like you're also trying to treat the two conditions with a cigarette. And then when you don't take it, like he mentioned very clearly, sometimes if you're reading a newspaper, by the way, you might just keep staring at it and it's not really making sense. But when you just take that puff now, then, my mind is so clear.
Is it the eyesight or the mind?
The mind.
It's the mind.
Yeah, it makes you feel like you're sharper, but at the end of the day, it is really affecting your mental health.
David, I want to talk about what prompted you to seek treatment? And what treatment have you actually gone through?
Yes, definitely addiction is what it robs from you first is dignity. Very tricky. And I think in a family, maybe it's just only me who went maybe to a local government school. The rest of them, my siblings, spent it at national school. So when I remained back home, I didn't have enough because maybe my siblings took everything in terms of pocket money, school fees, and whatever. I had to go to attend that local school. Now, in my stay back home, maybe I lack finances or whatever, and being a lastborn, there's also sibling positioning in this issue. Being a lastborn, I felt that I'm loved greatest. So even if I pick sufuria, go sell it, nobody will question. So I started venturing into our own property to get finance to fund this substance. We say we live to use and use to live.
Oh no.
That is what the addict does. And all this time, I'd been selling property. I went to the extent of busting the doors inside a permanent building belonging to my parent. I'll sell the doors. A pick will just come pick the door. Sold. It's gone. I'm somewhere. Come with a packet of Sportsman or Embassy. That day maybe grandiose is high. I like to go classes or go places. Yeah, I'll order for Embassy. The next day you don't have anything. You have to bust the next door. Off the hinges, sold on a picky again. The door is gone again. Mama is crying. Everything is gone. There's some few, this you call gorogoros, or kgs, some 40 are missing of maize. David might have sold. Oh no, David is not a thief.
My son.
Yes, yeah.
Not my son.
Enabling.
Enabling.
There's also that factor. So in the process, with time, I got so much down in activity. I used to be sharp. And I want to say something about career, that during my career, I went for an attachment maybe with the Kenya breweries. I also started high gravity liquor. With that high gravity liquor, there must be the cigarettes. And we'll hide in the brew house stores with the liquor. It's high gravity. Yeah. Maybe one bottle is equivalent to the local sold in the pubs and bars at 6 bottles, equivalent to one high gravity liquor.
Wow.
And then every sip goes with maybe 5 or 10 puffs. So you can imagine if one puff shoots 100% of nicotine to your brain in 8 seconds, what about a packet?
That's a
And
high.
you're using the whole packet before lunch hour. Go for another packet. Our cigarettes are getting finished. That was the issue. So they felt pity that otherwise I needed some treatment.
Yeah.
So they had to confront me slowly. The family will make up. And I had a good brother still there, Christian. And he said, why don't you try rehab? Why don't you try rehab? But what is this rehab? Yes, I ended up in some rehab in Karatina. It didn't work. It didn't work. I relapsed the first week. After
First
treatment
week.
for 4.5 months. The first week, after 7 days.
Oh no.
Deep inside, with a whole bottle of local brew and packets of cigarettes. Now I was smoking Roster. This,
I know, no filter.
yes, this curly
Don't ask me
thing.
why I know.
Yeah. This shows, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And liquor dens, liquor spots, you also have to use your head. My money is getting finished. this mama is placing a packet of cigarettes ovyo ovyo. I pick it.
Ushachukua
Yeah, you become a thief in the process also. Yeah,
to support your habit.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Let's pause that story there because, you know, I know that you're watching and you can relate. You know somebody in your family. And probably I want to speak just for a moment. I'll give Dr. Cassie just a chance to talk about to the enablers around us and what they need to do. I need you to come to that just in a moment. But I'm very curious. You talked about relapsing, and Michael, could you get into treatment? And then we'll go on a short break. What do you think, just probably in your own experience, because I'm sure it's different from what he did in his first experience. What is some of this treatment for nicotine?
Mostly people on cigarettes are not just purely on cigarettes.
As he's highlighted.
You know, we call it a gateway drug, that it opens doors for other things. So mostly people on liquor, marijuana, codeine, they take it as a supplementary drug. Nicotine has the ability to make things feel more fun.
So it's enhancing
It enhances
an already enhanced feeling.
Exactly. It does that. Even things like watching TV, you get someone who will wake up in the morning, they want to smoke as a motivation for the day. You get someone wanting to smoke before they eat, after they eat, you know, before they go to bed. So it kind of enhances things. So in formulation of a treatment plan, we look at the presenting problem. The presenting problem in this case is the smoking, or maybe the alcohol, or maybe the marijuana. But there's what we call the predisposing issues. What are the perpetuating factors? Because when you talk of the predisposing factors, maybe there's something we call a comorbid situation, where, like, I like what Dr. said when she spoke of depression and anxiety. You see, there's already is a problem, and someone is using the wrong medication, which is an addictive substance. So usually in the psychiatric evaluation, we need to see what else is underlying that is causing this presenting issue. So rehabs in the past have not been very keen to really look at the underlying issues. So probably the formulation of his first treatment plan, there's something that was missed, you know. And by the time they're discharging him, this is a patient who has no insight, because our primary objective is to make sure that the patient, the client, has insight, like I spoke earlier and spoke of psychological, emotional, spiritually independence, because these are people who have a dependency issue. Substance has a way of traumatizing the brain. It attacks the prefrontal cortex, which is this part, forehead part of the brain, which deals with idea processing, with organization, future planning. It is the part of the brain that tells you you need to wake up, brush your teeth, take a bath, breakfast, go to
I
school.
didn't know that, because that means then you're so disillusioned. Like there's no focus, there's no plan, there's no goal,
There's nothing. When you're talking of cognitive restructuring, you're talking about structures that have been demolished, you know, because the prefrontal cortex, the brain mostly finishes developing at the age of 25 years.
That's why you shouldn't get married before 25.
But you get people start doing this thing in their teenage years. Like for my example, when I started doing marijuana, I was like 16. You know, cigarettes, I was 16. So by the time I'm getting into my 21, 20, into my 20s already, my developmental stages of the brain have been interfered with. So my cognition, you know, my processing is compromised. So by the time you are supposed to have this thing automated, you know, you wake up, you go to school, you do your studies, you pass your exams, you go to college, you get job, You start working, you start budgeting, savings, investments, get married. You see, this one is not there.
Wow.
So that's why people wake up in the morning and they start drinking. You kutoa lock 5 in the morning, you wake up. There's a friend of mine who anapulizaga vuvuzela, and he's not in South Africa, he's here early in the morning to get his coordinates right. If he doesn't do that, there's going to be a short circuit in his system, because of a long time of abuse, the substance has replaced this essential dopamine, which is being produced by the brain naturally, but it has now been, replaced by substance. So when you start formulating the treatment plan, there's so many things that need to be taken, into
And
consideration.
doctors like to call it history.
History, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's why I'll give you a chance to comment on the same, but we need to take a short break. When you come back, yes, we are going on with David's story. I know everyone is just keen to hear and listen, but we're also getting into treatment and mostly how you can support people who are in addiction, because at some point we need to stop and get off our high horses and actually care and figure out how can we support. We'll be responding to all your questions. You can send them on Facebook. You can send them on text, which is 22232. That's 22232. The number is right below the screen. When we're back, we'll be picking up all your calls. See you shortly.
Only God can turn a mess into a message.
I have a boy on a wheelchair.
Yeah.
I'm still preaching on the pulpit.
Amen. Niliona mguu ya nyuma inakuja tu kunikanyaga, imenilenga tu kwa tumbo. Nikaitana tu Jesus. I got tired of working with the x-ray papers, and one day I just woke up and decided to burn them.
A test into a testimony.
The whole community didn't want to hear that anybody is born again. Excommunicated, straight.
Bila Yesu hakuna njia.
Join Sharon Naitore Wangenye on Testify.
Katika hiyo harakati hiyo spirit ikakemewa, mimi nimeona Yesu Kristo namna hii. Kwa msalaba. Opa. Hallelujah. Hallelujah.
Every Thursday at 8 p.m. for a moment to grow your faith some more.
Join John Carson every weekday as he takes us on a journey through the Bible.
Whoever shall seek to save his life, if you go back to living for yourself, you're going to lose it. But whoever shall lose his life, give up his life for my sake, he shall preserve it.
Enjoy interesting, knowledge-packed, yet simple teachings through his humor and in-depth understanding of God's Word.
The last people that tried to put God in a box, literally, he rose again. He wouldn't stay in their compartment. If God was small enough for me to figure out, he wouldn't be big enough for me to worship.
Tune in to Hope TV for John Carson every 10 p.m., 4 a.m., and 10 a.m. weekdays on Hope TV, where you look and live.
Our Christian life is not just about God always stepping in when you are in trouble. But sometimes you need to go through the valley of the shadow of death, and God will say, angels, stand away. He must go through that. She must go through that. Because out of this would come something greater and more beautiful.
On standby. And welcome back to Health Check on Hope TV. It's where you look and live, talking real stories, real examples, but also with professionals and also people who have conquered. We're talking about nicotine dependence on Health Check today. Thank you for all your questions, your comments. We'll be opening for calls shortly after we get into the treatment. But I just want to see, someone says, does tea have nicotine and does it affect us in any way?
Tea is caffeine.
Caffeine, yeah? Okay. Does that affect them in any way? Big yes?
Yes.
I think we might have a caffeine session as well, because there are those who cannot start their day without a cup of coffee.
Mm-hmm.
I need coffee. Don't talk to me until I have my coffee. I'm going for a meeting. I need a coffee. I just had the worst time of my life. Let me have coffee. We talk about that on its own. But put yourself in this category because you sound the same as what we are talking about. So someone is asking, hi Kerry, ask how smoking and depression is related. Okay. Just we can repeat that part as we continue and get into treatment.
Okay. So let's start this way. When you have anxiety or depression, there are chemicals within your brain that are affected, yeah? There's an imbalance. So when you use cigarettes, it sort of raises the dopamine, as he was talking about, which is a feel-good hormone when it is, in the reward pathway. Let me just refer to it as the reward pathway in the brain. So that the levels increase, therefore making you feel good. This can mask a depression because of if you're depressed and you smoke, then you feel better. Life goes on.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, let me ask. There's this other condition that goes with like bipolar. What's the other? Schizophrenia. Does smoking also suppress schizophrenic behavior?
It does not suppress, but with schizophrenia, especially for patients who are on treatment, we are sort of trying to stabilize the dopamine. And because of that, the patients sometimes feel like they are lazy or they are, not coordinating very well. And therefore, when they use the cigarettes, they feel better. So they tend to use cigarettes a lot.
Okay, as a coping.
Yeah.
Okay, that's Dr. Catherine Gitao, who is a psychiatrist. With me on my immediate left is David Odaba, recovering from cigarette smoking, but also serving at
Dove Mental Health Hospital.
Kikuyu.
Kikuyu.
Awesome. And also Michael Ondachi, who is an addiction counselor. Thank you so much. We were talking on treatment, but at least you've highlighted trying to get the history of someone so that you can treat correct. So eventually, I want to come back to you, David.
Yes.
Did they get it right? And how long have you been without smoking? What's the word for it? It's without smoking. Is there like a word?
Abstain
from
yeah.
smoking. Thank you, sir.
In abstention, yes.
Yes.
That is, I want to say, talked about relapse.
Yes.
For the first time. From 2014 when I was in that rehabilitation. And then I went back to the staff and gateway was this nicotine. Later on, I came across some like adverts that if treatment fails, training is an option.
Wow.
Yes.
I like that.
So, courtesy of Kenya Institute and Business, Counseling and Business, I went to Dove for training. And this was very encouraging because I wouldn't see the cigarette for 2 years.
Wow.
I never went past the main gate
Wow.
for 2 years.
Wow.
Because I knew what I was pursuing. And the substance was just gone. It's also the duration, it determines. But also staying long with the cigarettes and whatever, getting that person out of that habit is also a problem. You can end the stuff. You can say, I'm done with this, I'm done with the cigarettes. But the habit, you're still seated with Michael, his puffs, there's this second hand smoke. They say passive smoking.
Mhm.
Yeah, second hand. It's also you are carrying more cigarettes than the person who is smoking. That person maybe creates like a filming of or coating of carbon.
Mhm.
Yeah, like tobacco has all this. Yeah, it's got the cadmium, the nitrate oxide, whatever the other alkenes inside. But the most powerful is nicotine. It goes directly to trigger the pleasure centers of the brain. But the other substances, they'll make a filming, a coating. So this guy is not really infected by the substance.
Mhm.
You who is new or seated close to this person, you are smoking more than the
Mhm.
individual. So in the event of taking that training course, this is where I would meet many more who are suffering from cigarettes, whatever. I think my denture can attest to that.
Mhm.
Yeah, losing almost all the teeth.
Mhm.
Yeah, these are what affections to the gum. Yeah, gum receding disease from the cigarette.
And people never talk about that.
They can never. Nobody is ever really
Cigarette
bold.
smoking will cause blank, 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 and then. But I noticed cigarette advertisements were banned in Kenya.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You are.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe people don't even want to mention that diabetes type 2 directly. If you have smoked for a long time, you'll get it because the insulin and even the resistance, the insulin resistance is affected, and it doesn't have strength enough to dissolve your sugars from your body tissues into the cells so that you use that energy. So that if sugar remains flooded in your bloodstream, whatever, that's blood sugar
Yeah.
directly.
Mhm.
Also in the lungs, the alveoli or the airbags, when they shrink, they take in the oxygen, when they maybe the I don't know, they maybe to expel the carbon dioxide.
Mhm.
In that process, the nicotine affects that strength, and you are not able to breathe properly. That is how the lung cancer comes about.
Wow.
And nobody, if you tell somebody, they'll tell you those are myths. Those are things. How do you get into a human body to take precautions and then look at this? So where are you? How do you observe this?
Absolutely.
That is just medical language. It's not true. Take a bath.
David, let's pick a call from Paul in Olkalau. Let's pick a call from Paul and we'll proceed. And I think probably it's for you. Paul, thank you for calling Health Check. Can you hear him? Paul, good evening. Paul?
Hello?
Okay, so keep calling us. Keep calling us. We're going to pick up your
Hello?
calls as we... Oh, yes, there you are. Paul, how are you?
Hello?
Hello, Sasa.
Hello?
Hello.
Yeah, my name is Peter Morage.
Peter. Okay. Go ahead with your question. Peter.
Yeah, my name is Peter. My name is Apostle Peter Morage from Okarao.
Yes.
And my question is,
Mm-hmm.
I really want to know the effect, the complete effect of the rehabilitation centers,
Mm-hmm.
because I have seen people go to the rehabilitation centers,
Mm-hmm.
despite of them being charged a lot of money, but there is very little, if anything, that comes out of those places.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can get a situation whereby a person is even charged up to about 100,000
Mm-hmm.
from some of the rehabilitation centers, but after a short while, the person coming out will resort into the other habit of taking the narcotics.
Mm-hmm.
So what is the way forward? I have seen that gentleman who is there, who says rehabilitation center, but nothing much changed.
Mm-hmm.
So what is the way forward?
Awesome.
Thank you so much.
I like your question. Thank you so much. We were still continue the story. That's Apostle. Let's pick up the other call. Do we still have it? We can pass it. Then we can pick up all the questions. Go ahead. Please, as you call us, reduce the volume of your TV so that we can hear you. Director, do we have it? Please reduce the volume of your TV. Hakuna haja ya kujisikia, italeta echo. I love that question. It's a conversation I actually had with a group of people last week. This is so strange because we're looking at change, real permanent change. But I like what you talked about. Was it transformation and treatment?
Yes. Extension of treatment.
Through training.
Through training.
Yeah.
If treatment doesn't work, training is an option. Yes.
Can you just answer it as you continue your story, just sharing how training is working for you and recommend it probably to someone like Peter? As we come back to Daktari, we'll just get back slowly into the training. We'll get back into the dangers and complications because we've highlighted them. But can you get ready with that, Michael? Complications and dangers? Yes, let's pick it. Good evening. Thank you for calling Health Check.
Hello.
Yes, we can hear you. What's your name and where are you calling from?
Hello.
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 Tunakusikia.
Hello.
Okay. We can hear you, sir.
Yes, my name is George Apeta.
Yes.
My name is George.
We heard you. What's your question, George?
You get me?
Yes. Okay. Director, you can pick the question for me and tell it to me. Let's keep going.
Yes, I am calling from Kikuyu.
Yes. Okay, you can just pick the question or the comment. It's called from Kikuyu. Do you know him? Not everyone in Kikuyu knows each other. Okay. I think we'll come back to that. We'll come back to how training has worked for you. Exactly. And you can recommend it as we continue. We'll pose the question just for a minute and get to dangers and complications. He's highlighted some. Michael, I'd like you to pick up on it. Receding gums, treatment, lung cancer.
Yeah. Nicotine is terrible, not just in the form of cigarettes, even the non-smoked.
Is it the
Yes. They
Nofu
call it
and Kuber and I don't know Chavis. They call
Chavis.
it Chavis. That's what the kids told me today. I was like, hiyo hata sijajua.
Yeah, I call it Chavis, Kuber,
Ndovu.
Ndovu. Yeah, but Kuber I don't see it around anymore. That was terrible. So the lung cancer is real. The gum, mouth, lips, it's real. Heart complications, it's real. People getting amputated, complicating gangrene, it's real. It's very much real, and the statistics don't lie, because in this country we are losing about 600,000 people per year
to
nicotine,
wow.
Tobacco related complications. Globally, we are talking of 8 million per year, and about 2.1 million is indirect consumption. So it's not something to joke around with, the severity of the negative implications of nicotine.
Absolutely. Just to name but a few. Daktari, you can pick up on that as well. But can we get to how nicotine dependence can be presented? Just some practical life skills probably that we could look at.
Okay. Before even we move further, maybe I give even a live experience.
Please.
I lost my father to lung cancer, and he was a smoker over 40 years. And all through as children, we thought, this lung cancer is not real, because you see somebody another day, he's old, but eventually it does happen. Wow. So this is not just statistics, it's real.
I know when he was speaking, he was looking at you. It's like he knew because he was like, lung cancer actually happened.
Yeah, and you notice that with smoking, also your blood changes. You find that smokers, their hemoglobin is higher, and then also their blood is thicker. So you tend also to get clots easier. So chances of getting deep vein thrombosis, getting pulmonary embolisms are also very high. So yeah,
Thank you
just
for
to
sharing
add to that.
And more strength to you. Yeah.
Yeah. So prevention. How about not starting at
all? I think we all need to
can
say it in our
start
different
there.
voices. Please say, don't start. Just look at a camera. Just say, don't do
Don't
it.
start smoking. That one cigarette you're offered, just think of the end of it. Because once you start smoking, I mean, you'll want another one and another one. Then it becomes a habit. So just avoid. That is one way. Then for those who have already started, because then prevention can be at different levels, look for a medic who can help you in terms of stopping the habit. And you can start at the level of using the gums, or the gums are cheaper, so those are easier to acquire, or use of the patches. That is also another way of getting off the nicotine addiction. And this you work with the psychiatrist and as well as a psychologist or an addiction counselor, because there's need for the psychological support to get out of the habit. Then apart from that, there's medication that is used to help you get off the cravings of the nicotine. So if you work with a psychiatrist, psychologist, addiction counselors, it's possible to get out of the habit, and people have stopped using nicotine.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So the first preventive measure is don't start. But if you have started, you can also start the journey of stop of
You know,
getting
sin thrives
abstinent.
in secrecy. So the more you do it secretly, the less help you'll get an opportunity to get. So put it out there. I want to ask Michael, how did you stop? And how long has it been?
Oh, right. For me, it's 4 years now.
Wow. Congratulations.
What happened? I went into treatment. I also work at Dove.
Yeah.
He's my colleague.
Yes.
And I had a lot of issues, underlying issues. I realized that I was depressed since I was 9 years old. You know, I had interesting family dynamics. My dad was a serious alcoholic, same with my mom. She also did weed and a few things. So for me, the genetic predisposition was real. But at the time I was coming into rehab, I didn't have any aspect of self-awareness because I was just having fun. You know, grew the dreadlocks, went hardcore, you know, Tupac, those kind of things. So what happened is when I was in rehab, I have an uncle, he's a Pasi. I won't mention his name, but if you have my surname, you can know who this guy is.
Yeah.
Yeah, so...
You don't have to celebrate him when you
I know he's watching. I have the legal authority to share with what he did. So he came to rehab and he told me, Chief, you went back, eh? And I was like, He told me, so you drink, smoke, then you go mad. I was like, yeah. So this is him. So what I'm going to do is, you know, I'm a pastor, and one of the most challenging things that I have to do is to bury friends, family, relatives, especially family, because I need to go for therapy. I have to go for counseling because it's hard and it's difficult. But for you, I will not go. I'll bury you. and we'll forget about you.
Why do you have a feeling there's a certain pastor I've said who will preach at my funeral. I will share notes whether it's the same guy. He preaches such powerful sermons at funeral.
And I was like, hey, is this guy serious? He told me, I've had it.
I'm done.
That's it. And I back on my mind, I was like, this guy is not serious. I took advantage of him for a long time. So when I was discharged, I went back to drinking and smoking. So I was just, there's a night I was very high. So I don't know if I was hallucinating, you get to hear voices and sing things. So I had his voice at the back of my mind. I had drink, 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 die, I bury you. He was like, hey, Chineke, this is not gonna happen. So the next day, I realized I had lost it. I was like, God, you've given me so many opportunities. You've given me family. You've given me privileges, and I have abused those things. And I got on my knees. I tell you, that floor was messed up. I said I was done. I said, no more. It's a long story. It's a long story. But after that short while, I started getting destiny connections, pointing me towards the rehab again. So my former director, he invited me back to the facility, and he told me, Ondachi, I need you to do the training. I want you to, we have projects, there's work to be done. And I was like, I don't have time for this.
No.
I have ambitions. One Christmas, I'm sitting with guys, they're drinking liquor, smoking, blah, blah, blah. I drank 2 glasses of Coca-Cola. I went home. Lord, the next day I woke up, I had sleep paralysis. It's like you're trying to sleep
I know that feeling. You're awake, but you're asleep, but you can't move. You feel like you're drowning. Worst feeling.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I was like,
that's so bad.
Like, what's this? I didn't get it. So I had to go back. And my director tells me, I told you come, you refused. And I like what he's talking about, the training, being an option. And I had said I will not, but now I became the Jonah.
I love it.
I was in a Jonah kind of a situation. So he told me, we'll do this. And the day that I got on my knees, because it was like 3 months before I started with guys who were drinking, and I didn't use. But you see, I had gotten a drug-induced psychosis that was crossing over into what they call schizoaffective. Schizoaffective is like schizophrenia presenting with features of bipolar.
Yeah.
So it's crazy.
Doctor, are you nodding? Oh,
it's crazy. So the day I got on my knees, I heard from God, and God told me 3 things: identity, purpose, destiny. My people lack a sense of identity. In Genesis says that have dominion and subdue, but we are being addicted.
So we are being subdued, and those drugs are having dominion over us.
Preach,
preacher. Someone bring some water. Oh, we have some. You know what, Michael? People need to follow you and hang out with you, because I've been told literally we have 12 minutes. So I want you to wrap up what you're saying. I don't want to cut it short. And then everyone will give a closing statement, because that's the time we have. But I also have some questions. Dr. Let me share these questions with you, so when you're coming back, you can comment. Actually, this one will be for you. As you're giving your closing remark, please comment for Ken, who's in Kanyoni, saying, I'm addicted to beer and mogoka. Please help. So you'll comment for Ken, okay? Daktari, you'll comment for Margaret in Moranga, who has a 38-year-old daughter who has depression for 10 years. She has been to Madare and Nyeri Hospital, but still hasn't recovered and still is in medication and does want help. So you'll comment on that. Let's wrap up. This is very good. David is saying, very useful information. Thank you so much. And many other comments. So just wrap up what you're saying. That's powerful.
Right. The whole issue of addiction, for me, it's a lack of identity. When you don't know who you are, then you don't know what you're meant to do. Then you don't know where you're meant to go. So it's coming back to our origins. You know, we are created in the image of God, you know, and God did not create us just to hang out. We have purpose, you know, and purpose is about service. For me, quitting or being sober, you know, sobriety for me is not really about not drinking. It's not really about not using. It's about purpose. Like, where am I headed to? What do I need to do with my life that is consuming me so much that I have no time for drugs, that I have no time to get worried about relapsing? Relapse is a reality. I will not write that off. But in terms of self-awareness, in terms of spiritual awakening, because we do the 12-step program, which demands for an aspect of a spiritual awakening, are we able to be in charge, in control of our lives? Because the sun does not shine because it needs light. The rivers do not have water because they get thirsty. The crop does not produce food because it consumes the same. It's service. It's giving unto others, and that is what I found that God needed me for. Now that I don't drink, now that I don't smoke, so what? You know, and it's going back and getting others out. So for me, the bigger thing is about owning your destiny. You cannot fulfill your destiny on a theory, you know, you can't. It is about being deliberate and intentional in owning your destiny. Otherwise, time and chance will dictate the entire outcome of your life's experience.
I love it so much. And time and chance happens to us all. What do we do with it? That's a question. Let me give you a chance to just wrap up. I'm live on my Instagram. This was just so good.
Thank you very much. Michael has done a good part to talk about rehabilitation because it has worked for him. And what I wanted to say on Ken's issue, he's addicted to muguka.
And alcohol.
Hey. This muguka is even powerful than...
Wow.
This muguka, I think Michael will attest to that. He's seen victims of muguka. They're crazy. There's nobody. And then,
that's cut. Ile leaves.
Yes,
Ile,
exactly.
muguka is the leaves. It's not the sticks, eh?
Yeah.
That's miraya.
And some of this muguka is taken, placed in a horse tranquilizer, dried in the hot sun, and then we start chewing at 5. The ladies will come in at 6. People will be naked. What do you expect? So another aspect to this muguka with the nicotine issue, I think somebody can take even 2 packets of cigarette when you're on muguka, a smoker.
Yeah.
2 packets, exactly.
Yeah.
If we calculate that the cadmium, the carbon monoxide, nitrate oxide, everything in that cigarette, this guy is half dead. The
David,
living dead.
Tell Ken. Just look at the camera because Ken is watching.
So Ken, maybe rehabilitation like Dove. I'm not saying I'm selling Dove.
Sell Dove.
But
You
it's selling itself.
Yes.
We are here as evidence because I think I trained at Dove, and she trained at Dove. We have the other counselors, all recovering addicts. Strong in addiction, and then back, resuscitated or resilient back to their old shape. So you can expect what they give you, the information and the skills, the life skills, the class sessions. Yeah, exactly. And more so, we look at the presenting issues, the collaborative history. We follow the family, the genogram. What does it tell us? This guy is genetically predisposed, or the environmental issues that are concerned, or how did he develop the milestones he went through? We follow those issues that we gang up all this in our admissions at Dove, and we come up with DSM structural manual that gives us the axis 1 in whether this person has a problem that is clinically significant, whether this person is mentally retarded or personality is like
So you have a comprehensive way to give him support.
to come up with the diagnosis before we even come up with the objectives and then the treatment plan.
Okay.
We do it differently. So with Ken's issue, he can come to a better place like that. He'll be
Hey,
correct.
so marketing director, do you head of
Thank you.
church? Doctor, I want to give you a chance to just wrap up. I'm so sorry, time flies when you're talking about very important issues. The conversation is on nicotine dependence. We're telling you to share this video. We're telling you just don't start. And I believe that wholesome change is only through Christ, nothing else.
Yeah. So let me just say that, let me just add that part of prevention in terms of addiction is if there is an underlying mental health condition, have it addressed. If you feel, there is anxiety, depression, or there's been a change in your friends or family members' personality, just get them to see a specialist. The assessment is done, and then they are given the right treatment. And addiction in itself is a disease. So the sooner you get your loved one to treatment, the better. For Margaret, it was Margaret?
Yes.
She says that she has been to several places.
The daughter, it's 38.
The daughter has been to Mathare, to Nyeri, and not recovering despite treatment. Then maybe there's need for a reassessment, a second, third opinion, So for me, I would just ask her to get another evaluation. And then again, to add on to the treatment of depression, it's not just the medication. I usually say that the doctor does 10%, 90% is the patient. So there are many other things that maybe she needs to incorporate into her treatment in order to achieve full recovery from the symptoms.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so for me, I would advise a reassessment and maybe working on a treatment plan. As they have said, even for mental illnesses, we need a treatment plan specific for each patient, not one
size fits all.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I love it. That's all the time we have today. It's very, very sad. But what I need to highlight is that addiction is a disease. And that's the first thing you both highlighted when we started. And Michael said it. Addiction is a disease. Let's get these people support in 30 seconds, literally, because I know my director is going to scream at me. Don't scream. Enablers, talk to them. Just look at a camera. Talk to those mothers. Say, my son.
Yeah.
My daughter cannot do that.
So don't be in denial. Accept the facts that you can see. If you're seeing that your loved one is not able to control the amounts that they're taking, they're stealing from you to fund the addiction, they're doing things that are not in keeping with their personality because you already know them. Just admit there's a problem. Admit there's a problem and start to solve the problem. And one of the ways you can start to solve the problem is seeking the help of a professional. Seeking help does not mean you're weak, but it is a way to ensure that your loved one is helped. And there's something called tough love. If your loved one is refusing to seek treatment, please just tell them that you're doing this for them.
There are times when you are actually allowed to take someone to rehab forcefully.
Yeah, the law allows that.
The law allows that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you so much for your time. Thank you. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you so much for sharing your story. I really wanted to go we need to do a movie about your life because this is a victory movie.
Yeah,
I even have a title. Welcome.
Yeah.
My film students. Hey, white man, we should do a movie. Thank you so much for watching Health Check on Hope TV. It's the only station where you look and live. The one thing you can do for the loved ones and people around you is share this video. Let everybody get to know. Great programming lined up for you. News Watch is coming up at the top of the hour. Also is Chiriko. I'll see you tomorrow morning on Team Worship Wednesday on Hope FM, the station where you listen and live. Until next week, bye. Bye. Thank you.